There's a moment you probably don't think about until someone forces you to. You finish in the bathroom, you reach for paper, you wipe, and you stop when it feels good enough. And for a lot of people, that's the entire ritual. No water, no soap, no real cleansing. Just dry friction and a quiet agreement with yourself that whatever's left is not worth thinking about. If you're the kind of person who dry wipes and moves on, the psychology behind it usually isn't stupidity. It's something colder and more human than that: avoidance, normalization, and the brain's talent for making an uncomfortable reality feel invisible. Your brain is built to protect you from certain thoughts, not in a poetic way, but in a practical way. There are things your mind will blur out because staring at them too long makes you feel disgust, anxiety, or shame. And what is still on my body right now is one of those thoughts. Dry wiping works psychologically because it creates a fast ending. It draws a line under the moment. It gives your brain closure with minimal sensory contact. The less time you spend thinking about what you're cleaning, the easier it is to believe you're clean enough. And clean enough is a phrase that hides a lot, because medically, the skin in that area is sensitive and it doesn't always respond well to being rubbed repeatedly with rough paper. Clinical sources that discuss anal itching, also called pruritus inni, specifically mention that rough wiping can irritate the skin and worsen symptoms. It's not hard to imagine why. Dry wiping is basically abrasion. If you do it aggressively, or if you have frequent bowel movements, or if your skin is already sensitive, it can become a loop where irritation leads to more wiping, and more wiping leads to more irritation. If you've ever had that nagging itch that makes you feel like something is wrong, but you can't talk about it, you're not alone. The British Association of Dermatologists notes that pruritus inni is common and may affect up to 1 in 20 people. That doesn't mean every case is caused by wiping, but it does mean that minor hygiene and skin barrier issues can become a real quality of life problem for a lot of people. And when people feel that itch, many of them respond the same way they respond to everything uncomfortable: harder, more wiping, more scrubbing, stronger soaps, hotter water, more fixing, which can backfire because medical guidance also warns that too much cleansing, especially with harsh products, can dry or irritate skin and even cause contact dermatitis. So the psychology splits into two extremes. On one side, the dry wiper whose brain wants the moment over as fast as possible. On the other side, the overcleaner whose brain can't tolerate the uncertainty of maybe. Both are trying to escape the same feeling, they just run in opposite directions. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but why do so many people dry wipe if water seems obviously cleaner? And this is where culture becomes a quiet architect of your body. In many places, people are simply raised that way. Dry wiping is taught as normal, and anything beyond it is treated as unnecessary, odd, or embarrassing to talk about. Once a behavior becomes the default, your brain stops evaluating it. It becomes invisible, like the way you don't think about blinking. That's the power of normalization. It doesn't have to be optimal, it just has to be familiar. There's also a practical reason that looks like a moral argument when people say it out loud. People will tell you, it's fine, it's just what you do, because admitting it might not be fine would mean admitting something unsettling, that they've been walking around not fully clean their entire life. Most minds don't enjoy that realization, so the brain does what it always does when threatened by shame. It minimizes, it jokes, it shrugs, it calls it not a big deal. That's not logic, that's self-protection. And then there's the sensation problem. Water changes the experience, it makes things real. It makes you feel the fact that you're cleaning, not just finishing. Some people avoid water because they don't like the feeling of wetness, or they don't want to deal with drying, or they have sensory sensitivities that make the whole process feel worse instead of better. Dry wiping lets you avoid that. It's quick, controlled, and it keeps the experience contained to paper, not skin. If you're honest with yourself, you might also notice another layer. Time and convenience aren't just practical, they're psychological. When you're stressed, rushed, or tired, you default to the lowest effort ritual that still lets you feel done. You choose the method that demands the least attention. Dry wiping is attractive because it doesn't require a setup, a device, or an extra step. It's friction and denial in under a minute. But more thorough cleaning does have a real rationale, and you don't have to take it on faith. Dermatology focused medical writing points out that toilet paper and even some wet wipes can irritate sensitive perianal skin, while gentle water cleansing may help by reducing abrasion and avoiding irritants found in some wipes. Mainstream clinical explainers also state that bidets can provide a better hygiene experience compared to toilet paper, largely because water cleans without the same scraping effect. At the same time, the truth is not as simple as water good, paper bad, and this is where the psychology gets darker again, because human beings love clean, absolute rules. The medical literature is more nuanced. A systematic review of habitual bidet use in benign anorectal conditions found mixed findings. Some studies suggested no impact on hemorrhoid risk, while others raised the possibility of increased odds of pruritus ani in certain groups, and there are reports of irritation or injury with excessive or improper use. In other words, even more hygienic tools can become harmful if the brain turns them into a compulsion, or if people use high pressure, hot water, or overcleaning as a way to silence anxiety. So why does dry wiping persist, even when better options exist? Because a lot of people aren't optimizing for cleanliness. They're optimizing for psychological comfort. They want the least emotionally challenging version of the moment. Dry wiping is the version that asks you to feel the least. It's a ritual that lets you keep your distance from your own body. And then there's the social element that almost nobody admits. Talking about bathroom hygiene is taboo, and taboos make people stubborn. If something is embarrassing, it becomes harder to change because changing it would mean acknowledging it. It would mean purchasing something, learning something, or adopting a new habit that implicitly says, what I was doing before wasn't enough. Many people would rather stay slightly uncomfortable than face that kind of identity threat. Dry wiping stays dominant, partly because it's quiet. It doesn't require a conversation. There's also a false sense of safety that comes from not looking too closely. Your brain can mistake, I don't notice a problem, for there is no problem. But some issues don't announce themselves loudly until they do. Skin irritation, itching, and dermatitis can creep in slowly, and clinical guidance on pruritus ani repeatedly emphasizes that both insufficient hygiene and excessive, harsh cleansing can contribute to symptoms. The uncomfortable truth is that your skin is a boundary. If you treat it like a surface you can scrub into certainty, it can react. If you treat it like a problem you can ignore, it can react. Either way, the body keeps score. If you want one image that explains the psychology of dry wiping, it's this. The brain loves rituals that feel like closure. Dry wiping gives closure fast. It's not necessarily the cleanest end, but it is a clean ending. Water-based cleaning can feel like opening the door again, like extending the moment. Dry wiping lets you slam it shut, and once the brain learns a ritual that produces closure, it defends it. It will come up with reasons. It will call other methods extra, weird, too much, and unnecessary. It will even make morality out of it. I'm not one of those people. That's not hygiene talk. That's identity talk. It's the same psychology you see everywhere else, where habits become symbols and symbols become pride. But there is one place where the conversation gets very real, very fast. Germs and fecal contamination don't stay politely confined to the toilet. They travel through hands and surfaces, which is why public health guidance is so emphatic about washing hands with soap after using the restroom. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention explains that washing hands with soap removes germs and helps prevent infections, and it provides specific guidance on proper hand washing time and technique. Even if you never think about what remains after wiping, your hands still touch things, and your hands touch other people's world. And here's another unsettling detail. In at least one study investigating microbial contamination in the toilet context, researchers found fewer microbes adhering to gloves when a bidet toilet was used compared to not using it. That doesn't mean bidets are magic, and it doesn't mean dry wiping guarantees contamination. It means there is a measurable reality underneath the comfort stories we tell ourselves. So if you're the person who dry wipes, I'm not going to moralize at you. I'm going to tell you what your brain is probably doing, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your brain is choosing the fastest ritual that gives you emotional closure. On a topic you've been trained not to think about, your brain is prioritizing done over clean. Your brain is protecting you from disgust, from shame, from the intimacy of your own body, and it's doing it so smoothly you can mistake it for common sense. Now flip it around. If you've ever looked at water-based cleaning and felt a weird reaction, judgment, discomfort, even contempt, ask yourself why. Because that reaction often isn't about hygiene, it's about defensiveness. It's your mind sensing a threat to the story that you've always been fine with. It's your mind hearing, there might be a better way, and translating it into, you've been doing it wrong, and then rejecting it to protect your self-image. If you want the most psychologically honest ending, it's this. The way you clean yourself after the bathroom isn't only a hygiene choice, it's a relationship with your own body. Dry wiping is often the choice of distance. Water-based cleaning is often the choice of contact. Neither guarantees health, and either can become harmful if turned into neglect on one side or compulsion on the other. The real question is not what method is superior in some abstract argument. The real question is, what are you trying to avoid feeling, and what has that avoidance been costing you?